Parenting is not easy. I wish that I could tell you, like, here are a few tips and tricks. This is going to make the whole thing easier. This is going to make it all a piece of cake. This is going to solve your problems. But that's not real. Raising children is complicated, but raising them to love Jesus, to have that relationship with him, to disciple our kids, that's next level difficult. How do we actually disciple our kids? What does it mean to disciple our kids? I think that often we don't actually even pause long enough to think, what does that mean? So, in this video, we're going to talk about that discipleship process. What does that actually mean? So, let's get started. We've talked before in this channel about how discipleship isn't just passing on a set of beliefs, it's actually passing on that relationship. But relationships come with behavior. I mean, let's be honest. Behavior is part of those relationships. In fact, Jesus, when he gave the Great Commission, he said, "Go therefore into all the world, teaching them to obey everything that I have commanded you." That word obey is embedded in it. It's not just teaching them to believe everything I've commanded you. And often as Christians, we operate as though obedience isn't actually as important as believing. Teaching them to obey. I mean, if we think about it, we actually don't stress, as Christians, as Seventh-day Adventists, obedience as much as we stress belief. I mean, you think about the way our churches are set up, the sermons and so forth, it is knowledge based. We are trying to pass on knowledge. And that's why, I mean, you're not going to have a sermon covering the same topic week after week. But raising your kids, if you want to teach them to obey, you're going to be hitting the same spot over and over and over again. Because when you're looking for behavioral change, you keep focusing on it until there is that change. But how long would a pastor last if he kept focusing on the same topic until everybody had actually changed their behavior to match it? But discipleship has always been about obedience as well. This isn't something that we're as comfortable talking about. We're way more comfortable talking about our beliefs than our behavior. But discipleship is teaching through relationship. You're living life together and you're teaching that as you go. And this is why Jesus, he had 12 and they lived life together and they watched him and they saw the way he lived, the way he interacted with other people. And that's how he discipled them and prepared them to share the message themselves. And so if we're going to raise children who are disciples of Jesus, then we've got to use the same method. We've got to teach them by our behavior. Oh, wait, this just got real, because it's easy to talk about our children's behavior. It's easy to talk about how we want them to be, how we want better behavior from them. But to talk about our behavior as a teaching mechanism, that gets a little bit complicated, because we're not perfect either. How do we teach our children through our behavior? We do it by synchronizing our behavior to our beliefs, by living out, this is what I believe. Your beliefs should affect your behavior. When you read through the Gospels, when you look at the life of Christ and look at the way he interacted with people, the way he loved them, the way he, every single time he saw someone suffering, he stopped and eased their suffering. Can the same be said about your life? Or so often as we think through the Good Samaritan story, are we one of those who've passed by on the other side of the road? If we truly want to disciple our children, we cannot ignore the race issues in our country. If we truly want to disciple our children, we cannot ignore homeless people. If we truly want to disciple our children, we cannot ignore the stranger within our gates. It's easier said than done. And this, I'm not talking politics here, just to be clear. I'm not saying that our government should do these things. I'm not saying that some system needs to change. I'm saying we need to change. We as Christians need to be leading the charge on this. If we want to disciple our children, if we want to synchronize our beliefs to our actions, we've got to start making actual sacrifices. We've got to start living out what that is. I mean, we've all heard the saying, do as I say, but don't do as I do. As nice as that might sound, it doesn't work. Talked about it before on this channel. It's called hidden curriculum. If you say one thing and you do another, you're teaching two different things, and actions do speak louder than words. And so your kids are learning even the very thing you're saying is incorrect, because that's what you're living out. So if we want to disciple our children, if we actually want to raise disciples of Jesus, first and foremost, we've got to follow Jesus. We've got to follow him in belief and behavior. And following him in belief and behavior, that is not something that we just do by attending church. You see, our model for church has always been come, come, come. If you come to us, we'll give you the truth. But that was never Jesus's model. It wasn't his model for his own life, and it wasn't his model for his disciples. Jesus's model was go. It was not come. He was sent to earth. He sent his disciples out 3 times. 3 times he sent them out to every village, to every person, spreading the gospel that way. If we truly are disciples, then we also must go. We've got to be reaching out to people where they are, not expecting them just to come to church so we can then evangelize in there, not just expecting them to join our groups at church, but we've got to build those relationships outside. I'm sorry, it's really easy to raise children in the church and for all of their friends to be in the church, and that is great. It's great that they have good friends. But if you are never modeling to them what it looks like to be a disciple, what it looks like to tell other people about Jesus, if you are not modeling to them, this is how we live out the Great Commission, then how can we expect them to do what we haven't done? How can we expect them to know how to do what we have never taught them? How can we expect a behavior change in the next generation if we haven't had that behavior change first? Discipleship is about obedience. And Jesus said, go. Hey, if you've enjoyed this channel, if you want to be a part of this journey as we continue talking about what it means to disciple our children, I invite you, join this channel. By clicking subscribe and the bell notification, you're a part of this. And if you feel like this is something that needs to be heard, feel free to share this video. Because I am committed to discipling my children. It's going to take some sacrifice. It's going to take some work. And I'm looking to build a community of people who are also committed for that same goal. So let's work together and let's transform this generation so that we can raise up the next generation. Will you join me?